Hello everybody and welcome to my beginner's guide for Rift Wizard. I'm Icon and in this video I'm going to talk about everything you need to know to enjoy this classic roguelike. I'm going to cover the controls, how spellcasting works, how to survive these floors, and a lot of other things. So if you're looking for a specific topic, just check out the description box down there. You will find all the topics of the video behind the timestamps. Now, let's get started with user interface and the controls. On the left side, we see everything that makes up our character. We got the HP. If these reach 0, you're dead. We got skill points. You can buy new skills out of that. Realm is the realm level you're at right now. There's 24 of them, and then you win the game if you beat everybody down there. Learned spells, items in your possession. A couple of hotkeys down there to reach other things, and over here, this little help window transforms into your description thing when you hover over things. So basically everything in this game can be described by just hovering the cursor over it. If you don't want to use cursors because you hate mouses or you don't have any, or should I say mice? Is it computer mice or mouses? I don't know. Let me know. But if you want to do this with the keyboard controls, you just press V, and then you can control this little grid here with your numpad. Overall, movement happens with the arrow keys or preferably the numpad. You can also move by using the mouse. So if you just click at some point, your wizard moves. Different methods, and Rift Wizard has a very hybrid way of enabling you to play it with keyboard and mouse, mouse only, keyboard only. There's a lot of things in between, and I personally found myself using a mixture of these. So, controls wise, let's get further down. To cast a spell, you either press the hotkey here, the 1, and you load it, and then you fire it by either clicking the enemy in particular, or you just press 1, press tab, so you cycle through the enemies, and then press enter to release. That's pretty much it. You can access all your spells by either clicking them or pressing the hotkey in regard. Items are activated by either clicking them or pressing Alt and the specific hotkey. So Alt 1 would activate the health potion, and you will have to prompt this with enter, but this dude will not drink a healing potion because he's at full HP. So controls wise, there's 2 more things. You need to know how to learn new spells. That's either by pressing character sheet, where you have access to learning new spells and skills, or you see the hotkeys here, S and K. So you can't just press S or K. So these are the fundamental basics. I'm going to talk about everything else now in the next topic, where I'm going to talk about combat in general. I mean, we already had a portion of that. Firing spells at dudes is already part of the combat, but I want to talk a little bit more about it now. So combat in this game is pretty important. It makes up like most of the big part of the game, and it works like that. So you see how this monster works when you hover them. They got HP just like you. They are either living or not. That's important for certain spells. And they got a certain damage. You, on the other hand, got your spells with different ranges. You already noticed that here this green radius should be the range of your spells. If you want to know the radius of your enemies, just press T and hold it or release it. Holding it shows you this is the threat radius. If you stand in this particular area, you'll get smacked. Every other part is safe. T works all the way like that. The other thing which is important to know is pressing L, which shows you your line of sight. So basically on this floor, nothing obstructs my line of sight. But there are walls in this game where you can't shoot over. These tiles are more like chasms. So we're going to nail down these dudes by just firing our magic missiles. By the way, you should also inspect your spells. Your spells have a level, well, okay, that's goes without saying, a range and charges. So in combat in this game, you have to use the right tool for the right job at all times. So you see, our charges are limited. As soon as these are gone, you can't use the spell anymore. You have to drink a mana potion to refresh charges. But as you see here, the potion refreshes charges for all of your spells. So the more spells you have, the more strategic these decisions go. To win a floor, you do not only need to kill all the monsters, you also need to kill the gates. So every floor comes with monster spawning structures, and as you see there, this one spawns a goblin every 7 to 10 turns, and you get to read out how many turns there are left until this happens. So I'm moving now with a numpad towards there, pressing 1. Okay, it's in the range for my spell, so I'm now starting to pelt that goblin gate with my magic missiles, either via mouse or via pressing tab, or you can also control the grid manually by using the arrow keys or the numpad if you want to select a specific monster without any problems. So pressing enter, and now we've won our first floor. These are the fundamentals of combat. There's of course more to it once the enemies have more ranges and more special skills, but I'm going to talk about these things at the end of the video when I'm going to talk about strategies. There I'm going to talk a little bit more about what special abilities monsters can have. Here I wanted to keep things basic before we dive into the spellbook. So the spellbook is going to be your best friend. You have 4 pages of different spells, and as you can see here, they are sorted by a lot of different things. So this can be at first a little bit overwhelming, and my big recommendation to you is use these filters. You see there's a lot of filters about all manner of different keywords, and if everything at first is super overwhelming for you, you are going quite well with just filtering out, for example, all lightning spells. Or feeling like nature, filter out all nature spells and check out what's going on there. You see back there, the type section shows what kind of crossover a spell is. So for example, the poison sting spell is dives into the sorcery branch because it's a projectile spell. So nature defines the type of damage basically, and sorcery defines the kind of spell. The wolf spell here, for example, works completely different. With summon an ally, these chase autonomously enemies and are working without your doing. And this is a nature conjuration spell, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things. So here you have a example for a crossover spell that's between fire, nature, and enchantments, and so on. So I personally found it very, very helpful to lower the total amount of spells to get a first hold of it. So at first you have only one skill point. We will acquire new skill points by grabbing these memory orbs. Can also press A after a floor is done to automatically pick up everything on the floor. Now, with these skill points, you can buy new skills. You see here, there are the costs. We're rocking with Magic Missile. That's an arcane spell. So my usual approach now for a beginner, or my usual recommendation for beginners would now be filter out arcane and check out what the other options are. These are spells that would be most likely synergistic to your character. There's also more to the spells, and that's findable here in the character sheet. Every spell can also be upgraded. When you click them in the character sheet like I did here, you see you can upgrade the spells. Here's the costs in skill points, and here's the descriptions what they do. And every spell has a lot of upgrades. Really, seriously, a lot of upgrades. So for example, one that is shared by most spells is max charges, damage, and range. These are pretty standard upgrades that you will find on most spells, especially the extra charges. But stuff like the Disruption Bolt, Holy Bolt, Slaughter Bolt, you will find very, very unique upgrades on most spells. You can already pre-browse them a bit by checking them here. So you see here, Blaze Rip has these upgrades shown there in the info box, and this goes on. So here, for example, Petrify has also the upgrade Classify. Blink has the upgrade Dark and Lightning Blink. So you see there are a lot of options to go for with your spells. So your spells don't need to be basic. And here's the first thing that I want to recommend to you before we go deeper into the game. Don't choose too many spells. You don't need to choose too many spells. Rather pick a low amount of spells that fit well together. But more about that in the strategy section. The next thing I want to talk about are skills. They are accompanying your spell book. So you see, skills have a similarly large number of, well, it's less than. It's only 2 pages, not even 2 pages entirely. But your skills are passive things that influence your spell casting, and, well, they are really, really powerful. So, let's take arcane accounting. So whenever I cast the last charge of an arcane spell, my next non-arcane spell is free. If I kill an enemy with an arcane damage spell, he explodes. So these things can really, really change the way of playing. And you see, there's lots of extra effects, and picking the right skills for your spellbook is a big part of individualizing your spellcaster. I don't think I need to explain more about how skills work. There's only 2 things that I want to say. First off, skills don't have upgrades like the spells have. And the second thing is they are way more costly than your spells, therefore they are also a lot more powerful. So you should definitely check out what kind of skills fit to your spellbook. And if you're really new to the game, my personal recommendation would be pick a spell or a couple of spells that you really want to try out because they sound cool, play around a little bit with them, and then check out your skill book and check out and filter out everything that's combined to your spell. For example, here magic missiles are arcane, and what was it again? I think it was sorcery. Well, you get the idea. Try to find things that fit together, but in the worst case scenario, it never hurts to take your time to read everything here. I don't want to give out any specific builds because that's part of the fun. I don't want to spoil the fun. Okay, so skills out of the way, let's talk about items. You've already seen them here. I hovered about them a bit. So healing potion, mana potion for a charge, refreshing, teleporter, and there's lots and lots of other items in this game that you can't find. Consumables range from, let's check out another realm. Here's a golden stopwatch, stunning each enemy unit for 10 turns. That's one example for a consumable. Here, Stone Shield is also a nice example. Where is it hiding? Here, gain immunity to physical fire and ice damage for 30 turns. And what do we have here? An Elixir of Youth. I just want to give you a couple of impressions of how different the consumables can be. Sadly, I don't find this elixir here hanging around right now. But the gist of these items is they are problem solvers. Healing potions and mana potions are staple goods that you will and have to use to keep your build running. And teleporters, for example, are real big lifesavers. They can give you mobility in an emergency situation. That stopwatch, for example, stunning everybody on the entire map for a couple of turns is exactly what you can use if you totally would die, and so on and so forth. Use these consumables. They are meant to be used, and they are meant to win floors with. If you're not using them, if you're dying with lots of good consumables, well, shame on you. You should have used them. It will take a while, and I personally think using items accordingly is way harder than learning to use your spells accordingly, so don't be worried if you're finding yourself dying yet again. Don't be ashamed. I just said that as you know what I mean. Okay, so with that being said, there's not much more that I want to say about items. They are very situational, and try to use them as often as possible. The rule of thumb here is use them as often as you need to, and only when you need to use them. Learning that is a really hard part, but that's part of the fun to master this game. So the next thing I want to talk about is how progression in this game works. I have already touched a couple of things here, but progression, well, first off, at the end of each floor, you have to select where to go next. And this is also a big part of the progression mechanism. So you see there's a lot of different options. You already noticed it, ogle into and see what kind of enemies there are, how the level layout is looking like, and where the enemy gates are, what kind of enemy gates there are. For example, on this level there's only spawners for goblins. All the other enemies won't respawn here. And you can have a look on these enemies here. Here we have ghosts and goblin gates as well. So you can always select where to spawn your wizard at the next floor. This is a very useful tool. And let's check out the last one. This is quite a lot of narrow corners, and as you see here, the enemies have a lot of different abilities. So mind maggots drain charges if they get to smack you. And really, seriously, check out these enemies. Watch how they work, because this game has almost 500 different enemies, and they all have a certain specific thing going on for themselves. So here, the Psychic Goblin has a range of 10. So if you use the threat radius here, pressing T right now, looks a lot like that. Pretty scary, isn't it? So we're going to take this floor nevertheless, because I like the fact that all the enemy spawning buildings are here. So the next thing for progression is check out how you want to progress. Check out if you see new spells that you want to use, what kind of new spells that you want to use, and like I already mentioned, don't spread yourself too widely. Focus on an array of spells, upgrade them, and have fun with them, but don't try to be too much at once. Your goal in progression should be to have an array of spells that kill enemies, a little bit of utility to get yourself out of bad situations if necessary, and probably some summons or some extra miscellaneous stuff in between never hurts. Also, part of the progression game is to select the proper skills, but you already guessed that. So I don't really have to say more about that. We're going to go into the next floor now, and I'm going to talk about strategies now. So strategizing is the way how you beat this game. So the first step here is always check out what kind of resistances the enemies on the next floor have. So for example here, the Psychic Goblin has 50% arcane resistance. My spell deals arcane resistance, so I'll have to be careful about that. The deeper you go, the worse this goes, and therefore, first real important part about the strategy game is try to not rely on only one damage source only, and not only on one way of dealing damage if possible. So for example, if you're relying on big AoE damages, you should try to have one single target damage for specifically hard enemies. Now looking at this situation more and more, I like this floor way more, so let's go there. So try to have two solutions to be able to beat floors that are highly resistant against your dominant spell damage. Another thing that I really like are conjurations in general. Everything that summons stuff is awesome. So summons a hungry maw. Here we have one example for a stationary creep. There are lots of other things. So summon mushbooms. Well, conjurations is the field where you can learn all manner of different things. So spells are very diverse in this game. Take your time. We're going to learn Wolf here, although I don't think it's the wisest choice, but I want to show you how cool summons can work. So we're summoning Wolf here, and as you can see, it has this range. And I'm going to summon the Wolf right here next to the gate, and I'm starting to shoot enemies around me with my magic missiles. Dropping a Wolf here to stop the goblins and keep pelting my enemies. Maybe drop a Wolf down here as well. And this is a way to deal with this situation. And the next thing, if I would continue this run, would be to check out how to combine these things. Another thing worth mentioning is that there are lots of upgradable elements in the floors beyond. So there are, for example, shrines where you can upgrade your spells at. There are there are different things where you can upgrade specific elements in particular. For example, you could go for an area where you... Let's play that real bad, forgive me. You could go for an area where you can learn fire magic in specific. So, I wanted to do this to see if I can find an example. So here's only Ruby Heart here. Sorcery Circle. Here, you see that spells, upgrades, and passive skills are cheaper here. Utilize these. It will mean that you will sometimes have to fight through floors that are a little bit bad for you, but these things, utilizing them is a big part of getting your character really good. And last but not least, it's all about finding good combos. You'll have to find out for yourself which kind of skill really kicks ass in combination with your spells. There are so freaking many options to combine things that this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest parts of the fun. For example, just check out how many different upgrades I can pump into my summons here. Wolf is only a level 1 spell. It's amazing. So, to summarize my strategizing here last time, try to have a solution for not only one kind of enemy, but for enemies that are resistant to your preferred type of damage. Don't have only single target damage, AoE damage, or damage over time. Try to be a little bit more diverse than that. Try to be able to deal with different situations before they hit you, because you will have to be prepared before they do. The next thing, check out the portals up ahead. Try to find enemies that are good, beatable for you, and weigh the risk versus reward thing. If there's a very, very juicy reward down the road, it might be worth taking a big risk that's harder for you to beat and might burn up a couple of your resources if the reward here is really massively upgrading your path a lot. And the last part that I have to put in here is don't worry about deaths. Whenever you die, just try to think about why that happened, what you could have done to avoid that, and learn out of it, and be happy that you can start out a new character with a couple of these spells you didn't check out the last time. So with that out of the way, that's all I have to say. I love this game. It's really cool because it's a classic roguelike. That means everything is accessible from the get-go, no unlocks, just difficult gameplay, provoking you to finally beat the last floor. Alright, I thank you so much for watching. Drop your comments down below if you feel like I missed out a spot, if I should have talked about something really badly. Add it in there, I'd be happy. And of course, ask away if you have questions. And as usual, leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing. My channel has daily content coming up there. All you need to do is push the notification bell, not put the notification bell, and you'll receive all the updates. Last but not least, if you might want to check out the description box a little bit more, there's my Twitch channel where I do streaming every week, 5 days a week at least, and my Discord channel where you find like-minded gamers and also ways and means to support this channel directly. I'd be delighted if you check them out, but don't worry if you don't. Watching this video to this point already means to me more than you might think. Have a nice day and enjoy gaming. Bye bye.